It was presented as the ultimate salvation, a marriage to one of Dubai's wealthiest Indian businessmen, a life of luxury that would lift her entire family from generations of poverty. But behind the gleaming gates of the Emirates Hills villa, 22-year-old Anaya Sharma would discover that some cages are made of gold, and some prisons have the most beautiful views in the world. In 2019, while Dubai's skyline dazzled with prosperity, in a drought-stricken village in Rajasthan, Anaya Sharma was about to become the ninth mouth her family could no longer afford to feed. Her father, Mohan, stared at withered crops that represented their third failed harvest. The earth was cracked like broken pottery. "The moneylender came again today," her mother Sunita whispered, adjusting her dupatta to hide fresh bruises. "He says if we don't pay 15,000 rupees by Diwali, he'll take Priya instead." Priya, Anaya's 16-year-old sister, was the prettiest of 8 siblings crammed into their 2-room mud house. Anaya had worked in brick kilns since 14, her hands cracked and stained red from clay. Despite 12-hour shifts, she studied by candlelight, dreaming of becoming a teacher. She was brilliant at mathematics, could recite poetry that made grown men weep. She was the family's hope, until hope became too expensive. The younger children slept on thin mattresses, ribs showing through torn shirts. 4-year-old Ravi hadn't spoken in weeks, eyes hollow with hunger. Medical treatment was unaffordable. Education beyond primary school was abandoned. Mrs. Rekha Agarwal arrived like salvation itself, stepping from an air-conditioned Fortuner worth more than the village had ever seen. Her silk sari caught sunlight like liquid gold, diamond earrings glittering as she approached their doorway with practiced assessment. "I arrange marriages for deserving girls with successful businessmen abroad," she explained, sipping chai from their only uncracked cup. "Your Anaya could live in a mansion with servants, wearing jewelry worth more than this village." Her tablet displayed photographs of Indian women in designer clothes before palatial homes with swimming pools and luxury cars. "This could be your daughter," she said, pointing to a gold-draped woman beside a sparkling fountain. "My client, Mr. Raj Malhotra, owns import businesses across the Gulf. He's requested a cultured, educated girl from a traditional family." She omitted that Raj had been through this process twice before, each marriage ending mysteriously. Raj Malhotra sat in his Dubai office, 50 years old and worth 40 million dirhams, studying Anaya's photograph with cold calculation. 30 years ago, he'd been as poor as her family, sleeping on Mumbai sidewalks, eating scraps. He'd loved a girl then, Mira, who laughed at his proposals and married a banker's son. The humiliation carved something permanent and dark into his soul. Building his empire through textile imports and real estate, Raj learned to trust no one, especially women. His first 2 wives had disappointed him in ways requiring permanent solutions. Now he lived alone in his Emirates Hills villa, surrounded by security cameras and silence, paranoia growing like cancer. The negotiation was brutally efficient. Mrs. Rekha offered 10 lakh rupees, enough to clear debts, treat Anaya's father's heart condition, and send younger children to school. Mohan's hands trembled holding the contract. "My daughter is not for sale," he said, voice cracking with desperation. "Of course not," Mrs. Rekha replied smoothly. "This is proper marriage arrangement. Mr. Malhotra values traditional wives who understand duties. The only condition is quick ceremony. He has urgent business commitments." She gestured toward hungry children playing in dust. "Time is not a luxury your family can afford." That night, the family debated sleeplessly. 28 years separated bride and groom. Dubai seemed impossibly distant. "I don't trust this woman," Mohan confided. "But what choice do we have?" Sunita whispered. "The moneylender will take Priya next week." Anaya listened silently from the corner. She thought of her friend Kavya, who'd married locally and already had dark circles from mistreatment by in-laws. Was this foreign arrangement worse than village options? At least her sacrifice might save her siblings. 3 days later, Mrs. Rekha returned with contracts and a video call. The grainy connection showed Raj's opulent office with gold furniture and marble floors. He spoke briefly in accented English, formal and distant. I am honored to welcome Anaya into my household. She will want for nothing. He studied her like livestock, calculating worth rather than seeing humanity. The wedding was rushed in the village temple. No relatives invited due to Raj's privacy concerns. He participated via video for 10 minutes before disconnecting. Anaya wore her grandmother's faded red sari, their only unsold heirloom. As the priest chanted Sanskrit verses she didn't understand, she felt like attending her own funeral. The morning of departure, Anaya hugged each sibling goodbye, memorizing faces. Little Ravi finally spoke, "Didi, don't go," in a voice that broke her heart. Her mother pressed a silver pendant into her palm, her last piece of jewelry. "Remember who you are," Sunita whispered through tears. As Mrs. Rekha's car pulled away, Anaya watched her childhood disappear through the rear window. The first-class ticket to Dubai felt like luxury wrapped around a death sentence. She was 22, educated and intelligent, yet powerless to control her destiny. In 12 hours, she would step into a life transforming her from hopeful young woman into prisoner in paradise, setting events in motion that would ultimately destroy lives on both sides of the Arabian Sea. The Dubai that welcomed Anaya was a landscape of impossible towers piercing the cloudless sky. The driver, silent and stern-faced, offered no conversation as they traveled from the airport through boulevards lined with palm trees. When they arrived at Raj's compound in Emirates Hills, Anaya's breath caught in her throat. Massive walls surrounded the property, topped with security cameras that rotated slowly like mechanical eyes, watching everything. The main house rose before them, a sprawling white mansion with columns and fountains. "This way, madam," said Esperanza, the only full-time staff member, a Filipino cook who appeared as their car stopped. "Sir is at office. I will show you to your room." The part-time cleaner, an elderly Indian woman named Kamala, came twice weekly and spoke no English. Otherwise, Anaya would spend her days completely alone. Anaya followed through marble hallways adorned with crystal chandeliers. Her suite was larger than her entire family home. A bedroom with a 4-poster bed draped in silk, a bathroom with a tub the size of a small pool, and a sitting area with plush sofas. "These are for you," Esperanza said, opening a walk-in closet filled with designer clothes. "Sir has selected everything personally. Jewelry is in the safe." When Anaya attempted to call home using the landline, she discovered it was restricted to internal numbers only. The windows, though large and offering stunning city views, had been sealed shut permanently. Every door except her bedroom required an access card she didn't possess. The Wi-Fi required passwords she wasn't given. Raj arrived just before dinner that first evening. He entered her suite without knocking, his eyes moving coldly over her body in the red dress he'd selected. "You are thinner than in photographs," he said by way of greeting. "Fatima will prepare special meals to add weight. I prefer my women with curves." He spoke as if discussing livestock. Up close, he looked older than his pictures, his face marked by years of suspicion and control. During dinner, he asked no questions about her feelings or family. Instead, he outlined her new life with mechanical precision. "Your schedule will be delivered each morning. You will follow it exactly. Your primary duty is maintaining yourself as befits my wife. All communication goes through my secretary for your protection. Dubai can be dangerous for naive village girls." The next morning revealed what schedule meant. A detailed printout dictated every hour: when to wake, what to eat, when to exercise, what to wear. Even bathroom time was allocated. When she deviated by sleeping 30 minutes extra, Esperanza knocked insistently until she answered. "Sir checks the cameras," she whispered apologetically. "He gets angry when schedule is not followed." Within the first week, Anaya discovered cameras in every room except the bathroom, small black domes in corners that tracked her movements. When she draped a scarf over the bedroom camera, a security guard appeared within minutes. "Sir requires these for your safety, madam," he said without meeting her eyes. "Please do not interfere with security protocols again." Raj's control extended beyond physical boundaries. Her phone calls were monitored and limited to 5 minutes weekly with her family, with Raj listening on speaker. Her movements were tracked through GPS devices sewn into her clothes. Even her meals were predetermined, portions calculated to achieve his desired body type for her. The first incident of violence happened on her 10th day. Frustrated by another denied request to speak privately with her mother, Anaya raised her voice to Raj's assistant. "I just want 5 minutes to tell them I'm okay. What kind of prison is this?" That evening, Raj entered her room with frightening calm. "I understand you've been difficult today," he said quietly. The slap came without warning, sending her sprawling onto marble floor. "You will never raise your voice to my staff again. Your family has been paid for you. They have no further claim." The violence escalated from there. Minor infractions brought swift punishment. Expensive gifts appeared after particularly brutal nights. Diamond earrings, designer handbags, gold bracelets, as if pain could be erased with luxury. Anaya learned to survive by becoming invisible, studying Raj's moods like a scholar. The slight tightening of his jaw that preceded rage. The way he adjusted his cufflinks when displeased. It was during her 3rd week, while exploring the mansion's upper floors, that Anaya discovered the rooftop garden. A narrow staircase led to a door Raj apparently never used. The lock was dusty, the handle stiff from disuse. Beyond it lay a small terrace filled with neglected plants and a stunning view of Dubai's skyline. More importantly, it was the one place in the house without cameras. For the first time in weeks, Anaya could breathe freely. She began spending evenings there after Raj left for his night meetings, finding solace among the dying flowers and open sky. It was on her 5th visit that she heard it, the sound of a guitar drifting from the neighboring house. The melody was haunting, beautiful. Unlike anything in her controlled world, the music came from a rooftop terrace just 20 meters away, where a young man sat with his guitar, completely absorbed in his playing. He had dark hair that caught the setting sun, and his fingers moved across the strings with practiced ease. When he looked up during a pause between songs, their eyes met across the gap between buildings. He was perhaps 19, with kind eyes and a gentle face that seemed incapable of the cruelty she'd grown accustomed to. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. She, a prisoner in paradise, and he, someone who represented everything she'd lost. Freedom, youth, the ability to pursue passion without permission. The young man raised his hand in a tentative wave. Anaya glanced around nervously, then waved back quickly before retreating behind the rooftop's decorative screen. Her heart pounded with a mixture of terror and something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. Someone had seen her. Someone knew she existed. Back in her room that night, Anaya lay awake thinking about the brief connection. She didn't even know his name, but for the first time since arriving in Dubai, she felt less alone. Tomorrow evening, she decided, she would return to the rooftop. The small act of defiance felt like the first breath after nearly drowning. The next evening, Anaya returned to the rooftop with nervous anticipation. The young musician was there again, this time playing a softer melody that seemed to float across the evening air like a gentle caress. When he noticed her watching from behind the decorative screen, he smiled and held up a piece of paper, folding it quickly into an airplane before launching it across the gap between buildings. The paper landed near her feet. With trembling hands, she unfolded it to find a message written in careful English. "Hello, I'm Kabir. Are you okay?" Below it was a simple drawing of a bird in a cage with the door slightly open. Her eyes filled with tears at the kindness of a stranger who somehow understood her situation without knowing her story. She found a pen in her purse and wrote back, "I'm Anaya. Thank you for the music." She folded her own airplane and sent it flying back. Thus began their secret correspondence across the rooftops of Emirates Hills, two young souls reaching toward each other across an impossible divide. Over the following weeks, their messages evolved from simple greetings to deeper exchanges. Kabir wrote about his love for music, his dreams of studying composition in London, his concern for the sad girl he glimpsed in the neighboring mansion. "My father says your husband is a powerful businessman," he wrote one evening. "Everyone in the neighborhood knows his reputation. Are you safe?" Anaya found herself pouring her heart onto paper in ways she'd never done before. She wrote about her village, her family's desperation, her dreams of teaching that now seemed impossibly distant. "I came here to save my siblings," she confessed in one letter. "But I think I'm drowning instead." Kabir's responses were filled with gentle encouragement and poetry that made her remember beauty existed in the world. "You are not drowning," he wrote back. "You are learning to swim in deeper waters than you knew existed. And you are stronger than you know." He began including fragments of songs he'd written, inspired by their conversations. For the first time since arriving in Dubai, Anaya felt seen and valued for her mind rather than treated as property. Their correspondence grew bolder as Anaya learned Raj's schedule with scientific precision. Business meetings every Tuesday and Thursday evening. Extended dinners with clients on Fridays. Weekend trips to Abu Dhabi twice monthly. During these windows of freedom, their paper airplanes carried longer letters, sharing childhood memories, family stories, dreams for futures that seemed increasingly intertwined. Kabir revealed he was 19, born in Dubai to Indian parents who'd built a successful engineering firm. Unlike Anaya, he'd grown up with choices, opportunities, the freedom to pursue his passions. Yet he wrote with genuine empathy about her situation, never pitying her but recognizing her strength in surviving circumstances that would break many people. The turning point came during Raj's 3-day business trip to Saudi Arabia. As evening approached, Anaya found a note that made her heart race. "Would you like to meet properly? I could climb over during the staff dinner break. Only if you feel safe." The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. When she sent back a nervous yes, her hands shook with anticipation and fear. That evening, as Esperanza prepared dinner for the security guards, Anaya watched from her rooftop as a figure emerged on the neighboring terrace. Kabir looked younger up close, his face kind and open in ways that reminded her of her brother Arjun. He climbed over the wall with athletic ease, landing softly among the neglected plants. "I've been worried about you," were his first words, spoken in fluent Hindi that felt like coming home. His voice was gentle, matching the compassion she'd sensed in his letters. For an hour, they sat among the dying flowers and talked about everything. Her village, his music, the impossibility of their situation, the strange comfort they'd found in each other. When he finally climbed back over the wall, they'd established boundaries neither would cross. Their connection was emotional, intellectual, a meeting of minds rather than bodies. Yet the intimacy of being truly heard and understood felt more profound than anything physical could have been. Their meetings became regular occurrences during Raj's absences. They would sit under the Dubai stars, sharing poetry and dreams, talking about music and mathematics, finding in each other the companionship both had been starving for. Kabir brought his guitar sometimes, playing softly while Anaya hummed along, their voices blending in harmonies that seemed to heal something broken in both their souls. But happiness, Anaya was learning, made people careless. Esperanza began noticing changes. Anaya humming while arranging flowers, smiling at nothing, requesting different books from the library. "Madam seems happier lately," she mentioned casually while serving breakfast. The innocent observation sent ice through Anaya's veins. Meanwhile, their correspondence grew more intimate as emotions deepened beyond friendship. Kabir wrote love letters disguised as song lyrics, promising to find ways to help her escape when the time was right. "You deserve a life of your own choosing," he wrote, "and I would be honored to be part of that life if you'll have me." Anaya found herself dreaming of impossible futures, studying in London, teaching village children, creating a life built on choice rather than desperation. She wrote back with growing boldness about feelings she'd never experienced, about the hope he'd rekindled when she'd thought herself beyond saving. The risks escalated as their attachment deepened. Security cameras were repositioned after routine maintenance, creating new blind spots but also new dangers. Raj returned early from business trips without warning, forcing frantic scrambles to hide evidence of their correspondence. Once, Anaya barely managed to dispose of a love letter before Raj burst into her room, his eyes scanning suspiciously for something he couldn't quite identify. "You seem different lately," he observed one evening, his paranoid nature sensing changes he couldn't pinpoint. "More energetic. More." He searched for the word. Alive. The way he said it made it sound like an accusation, as if happiness itself was a betrayal of their arrangement. Anaya learned to compartmentalize her emotions, showing Raj the submissive wife he expected while nurturing her growing love for Kabir in secret. But transformation was hard to hide completely. She caught herself humming his melodies, smiling at memories of their conversations, radiating a contentment that felt dangerous in a house built on control and fear. As their secret romance blossomed under the desert stars, neither Anaya nor Kabir realized they were dancing on the edge of a precipice that would soon crumble beneath them, sending their lives, and the life of the man who claimed to own her, spiraling toward a tragedy that would shock the golden towers of Dubai and echo across the villages of India. Over the following weeks, Raj's paranoid nature began picking up on changes he couldn't quite identify. Anaya hummed while arranging flowers, something she'd never done before. She smiled at nothing while staring out windows. During their cold, formal dinners, she seemed distant, as if her mind was somewhere else entirely. The defeated girl who'd arrived from Rajasthan was transforming into someone with inner light, and it made his stomach twist with suspicion. "You seem different lately," he observed one evening, studying her face for tells. "More alive, less grateful." The way he said alive made it sound like an accusation. His business dealings had taught him to read people's motivations, and Anaya was exhibiting classic signs of someone harboring secrets. But what secrets could a village girl locked in his house possibly have? Raj began conducting surprise visits, returning from meetings early, checking the security footage more frequently. He interrogated Esperanza about Anaya's daily activities, her mood changes, anything unusual. The cook, terrified of losing her job, mentioned Anaya's improved appetite and newfound interest in books about music and poetry. Each detail fed Raj's growing conviction that something was fundamentally wrong. His paranoia intensified when he noticed Anaya had developed routines that coincided with his absences. She would disappear to the upper floors during his business calls, claiming to need fresh air on the terrace. When he checked the cameras, he could see her on the main balcony but never the rooftop level, an oversight in his surveillance system he'd never bothered to correct since he'd never used that space himself. The trap was set when Raj announced a 3-day business trip to Abu Dhabi, watching Anaya's reaction carefully. The flash of relief that crossed her face before she composed herself told him everything he needed to know. Someone was expecting his absence. Someone was planning to take advantage of his wife's vulnerability. His mind raced through possibilities. A secret lover, an escape plot, betrayal of the worst kind. That evening, as Raj's car pulled away from the compound, Anaya felt a freedom she hadn't experienced in months. She and Kabir had planned their longest meeting yet, hours to talk about their future, their dreams, the possibility of her escaping this golden prison. As night fell over Dubai, she climbed to the rooftop with a heart full of dangerous hope. Kabir was already waiting, having climbed over the wall during the guards' dinner break. They sat close together under the desert stars, their voices low and intimate as they discussed escape plans. "My uncle has connections in London," Kabir whispered, his hand gently covering hers. "He could help you get a student visa once you're away from here. You could study, become the teacher you always wanted to be." For the first time since arriving in Dubai, Anaya dared to imagine a future beyond these walls. They talked about music schools in London, about teaching children in villages back home, about building a life based on choice rather than desperation. Their conversation carried the weight of decision. This wasn't just romantic fantasy anymore, but concrete planning for a shared future. Neither heard the car returning to the compound. Raj's Abu Dhabi meeting had been cancelled at the last minute, a coincidence that would prove fatal. He entered his house quietly, noting the unusual stillness. Esperanza had gone home for the evening. The security guards were in their quarters. The house felt different, charged with an energy that made his paranoid instincts scream warnings. As he moved through the marble hallways, Raj heard something that stopped him cold, the faint sound of voices drifting from above. Not one voice, but two. A conversation too quiet to understand but intimate enough to chill his blood. He climbed the stairs silently, his businessman's shoes making no sound on the carpeted steps, following the whispered words that grew clearer as he approached the rooftop access. "I love you," he heard Anaya say, her voice carrying more warmth than she'd ever shown him. "I know it's impossible, but I can't help it." A male voice responded, young and gentle. "It's not impossible. We'll find a way. I promise you'll be free." Raj's hand closed around the rooftop door handle, his face contorting with rage that years of paranoia and control had primed for this moment. Every betrayal he'd ever suffered, Mira's rejection, his previous wife's defiance, the humiliations of his poverty-stricken youth, crystallized into pure fury. He turned the handle slowly, stepping onto the rooftop like death itself. Anaya and Kabir looked up in horror as Raj emerged from the shadows, his face twisted beyond recognition. "So this is why you've seemed so alive lately," he said, his voice deadly calm despite the storm raging in his eyes. "My wife has been entertaining guests." Kabir immediately stood, placing himself between Raj and Anaya. "Sir, please, this isn't what you think," he began. But Raj cut him off with a gesture that spoke of violence barely contained. "Isn't what I think?" Raj's laugh was hollow, terrifying. "I think my property has been contaminated. I think some boy has been sampling what belongs to me." He moved toward the rooftop door, turning the manual lock that would trap them all in this space high above the city. "We're going to settle this now, permanently." The clicking of the lock echoed like a gunshot in the night air. Anaya scrambled to her feet, her voice breaking as she tried to explain. "Raj, please, we were just talking. Nothing happened, I swear." "Talking about love?" Raj spat, advancing on them both. "Talking about freedom. Talking about betraying everything I've given you." His paranoid mind, already fractured by years of mistrust, finally snapped completely. The successful businessman disappeared, replaced by something primitive and violent. "You think you can make a fool of me? You think you can take what's mine?" Kabir raised his hands defensively, still trying to shield Anaya. "Sir, I'm sorry. This is my fault, not hers. Please don't hurt her." His words only fueled Raj's rage further. This boy daring to protect his wife, daring to love what belonged to him. The rooftop, which had been their sanctuary of freedom and hope, transformed into a prison where 3 lives would collide with devastating consequences, where love and obsession would meet in violence that would echo far beyond the towers of Dubai. What happened next on that rooftop would haunt Dubai's courts for years to come. Raj's rage, 30 years in the making, exploded with devastating force. He grabbed a heavy ceramic planter from the garden display, swinging it at Kabir's head with brutal precision. The young man crumpled to the ground, blood pooling beneath his skull as consciousness fled. "No!" Anaya screamed, throwing herself toward Kabir's motionless form. But Raj caught her by the throat, his businessman's hands surprisingly strong from years of physical labor in his youth. "You think you can humiliate me?" he snarled, his fingers tightening around her delicate neck. "You think some boy can take what I bought and paid for?" Anaya clawed desperately at his hands, her feet barely touching the ground as he lifted her. She tried to speak, to beg, to explain, but no air reached her lungs. The Dubai skyline blurred as darkness crept in from the edges of her vision. Her last coherent thought was of her little brother Ravi, wondering if the money Raj had paid would still save her family now that she was dying. When Raj finally released his grip, Anaya's body fell beside Kabir's like a broken doll. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and Kabir's labored breathing. Raj stared at what he'd done, his businessman's mind slowly processing the magnitude of his actions. He'd destroyed his property. He'd committed murder. He'd become everything he'd spent years hiding beneath expensive suits and social respectability. Panic set in as reality crashed down. He dragged both bodies toward the rooftop's edge, planning to stage an accident, young lovers jumping to their deaths. But Esperanza's early return to retrieve her forgotten house keys shattered his desperate cover-up attempt. Her screams pierced the night as she discovered the scene, bringing security guards running and neighbors calling police. Within minutes, the compound was chaos. Ambulances wailed through Emirates Hills as paramedics worked frantically over 2 broken bodies. Kabir, barely clinging to life with severe head trauma, was rushed to Dubai Hospital's trauma unit. Anaya was pronounced dead at the scene, her dreams of teaching village children silenced forever at 22. The investigation unfolded with devastating efficiency. Hidden among Anaya's belongings, police found dozens of love letters written in Hindi and broken English, documenting months of secret romance and escape planning. Security footage showed Raj's car returning early, his silent stalking through the house, his extended time on the rooftop before Esperanza's discovery. Kabir's recovery took 3 months: surgery to relieve brain pressure, intensive rehabilitation, psychological counseling for trauma that would never fully heal. When he finally testified, his gentle voice shaking with emotion, he described their innocent love, their dreams of freedom, Anaya's desperate desire to escape her golden prison. His words painted a picture of murdered hope that moved hardened journalists to tears. Raj's defense crumbled under overwhelming evidence. His lawyers argued crime of passion, temporary insanity, protection of marital honor, but the premeditated nature of his control, the systematic abuse documented in medical records, and the cold calculation of his attempted cover-up spoke to a mind that knew exactly what it was doing. The trial became international news. Indian media covered every detail, from Anaya's village childhood to her final moments under Dubai stars. Women's rights organizations rallied around her story, demanding stricter regulations on marriage brokers and protection for imported brides. Her photograph, young, hopeful, intelligent, became a symbol of countless women trapped in similar situations worldwide. In Rajasthan, Anaya's family received the devastating news through Mrs. Rekha, who had already moved on to her next victim. The 10 lakh rupees felt like blood money now. Little Ravi spoke his sister's name constantly, asking when she would come home to teach him letters. Her parents aged decades and days, carrying guilt that would destroy their remaining years. Raj received life imprisonment without possibility of parole. At 51, he would die in Dubai's central prison. His textile empire dissolved to pay legal fees and victim compensation. In his final statement, he showed no remorse, only rage that his property had been damaged by outside forces. Kabir's family relocated to London, unable to bear the memories embedded in every Dubai sunset. He eventually became a music therapist, using his gift to heal others carrying trauma similar to his own. But he never played guitar again without hearing Anaya's voice humming along, never looked at stars without remembering their stolen moments of happiness. Anaya was buried in Dubai's Indian cemetery, her grave marked simply, "Beloved daughter and sister, dreams interrupted." Her story became required reading in women's studies programs, a cautionary tale about the cost of treating human beings as commodities. Marriage broker regulations tightened across the Gulf, though enforcement remained inconsistent. The rooftop where she died was sealed permanently, but residents of Emirates Hills still report hearing guitar music on clear nights. A young woman's voice carried on desert winds, singing songs of freedom that came too late for the girl who dreamed of teaching children and died for daring to love.